Hello and welcome. Up first, another bombshell out of Washington. The House of Representatives Intelligence Committee says it will investigate whether the U.S. government conducted surveillance on any American political party's election campaign. It'll happen as part of the committee's broader probe into contacts between the Trump campaign and Russia. This a day after President Trump accused former President Barack Obama of wiretapping his phones in the Trump Tower, and just hours after the president called for a probe. However, Mr. Trump didn't offer any evidence, and Obama's spokesman has denied it. Our Ryan Nobles has more.
Take a look at the statement that was put out this morning by White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. It reads, reports concerning a potentially politically motivated investigations immediately ahead of the 2016 election are very troubling. President Donald J. Trump is requesting that as part of their investigation into Russian activity, the Congressional Intelligence Committees exercise their oversight authority to determine whether executive branch investigative powers were abused in 2016. Neither the White House nor the president will comment further until such oversight is conducted. And while this is the first official response that we've gotten from the White House related to these tweets with these explosive accusations by the president, they still don't answer many questions. Like, for instance, where is the evidence that the president cites in these tweets? And also, what are these reports concerning potential politically motivated investigations that Sean Spicer is talking about? We still don't have the answers to those questions. Instead, what we're going to get is an even more complicated investigation taking place in the U.S. Congress. Jonathan?
Just to make this very clear, what the White House is saying is that not only is there no explanation, but there will be none?
Well, that appears to be what they're saying. They've basically put it in the hands of these two committees, one in the House and one in the Senate, which are both running their own investigations into Russia's influence in the American election. So that was the goal of this investigation to begin with. But now, to a certain extent, the White House has complicated that goal by adding in this accusation, an accusation we should point out with no evidence behind it, that President Obama was the one who ordered a wiretap on Donald Trump's phones and on Trump Tower during the campaign. So whether or not this is a misdirection play, or if they're just trying to distract from the broader goal, remains to be seen. But as you mentioned, Jonathan, the House side has already said that they will take this up as part of their investigation.
Ryan Nobles. Well, as we've been reporting so far, there has been no evidence that Obama tried to get a wiretap for Trump. A source says no federal criminal wiretap was ever obtained. And here's what the former National Intelligence Director had to say about it.
I will say that for the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign. I can't speak for other Title III authorized entities in the government or a state or local entity.
I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this?
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order
Yes.
on something like this?
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Of anything at Trump Tower?
No.
We're joined now from Washington by CNN political analyst Josh Rogin, a columnist for the Washington Post, and by Skype from Colorado by CNN intelligence analyst Robert Baer, a former CIA operative. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Josh Rogin, can we start with you? And just the basics here. The president has made this astounding accusation, and Congress has agreed to investigate it. What do you make of this?
Well, when the President of the United States makes such an accusation, it requires a lot of us to figure out if it's true or not, and that effort is being really hampered by the lack of any evidence and also the lack of any explanation by the White House about why the President made these claims or on what basis. Now, White House officials have been telling reporters all day that the substance of the President's tweet came from a news report in Breitbart News, which refers to a radio program by Mark Levin, which is, again, sort of calling back to some spotty, thinly sourced allegations that there were these two FISA warrant attempts and one successful obtaining of a FISA warrant. And that's exactly what James Clapper has denied. All that the House Intelligence Committee has agreed to do is make inquiries about it and then continue investigating it if there is evidence. So there's absolutely nobody, either in the government or in Congress, backing up Trump's claims. But nevertheless, we're in this situation where now we can't ignore them.
Bob Baer, let's just push one step further. We just heard from James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence. He said explicitly that there was no FISA warrant, which is to say there was no warrant handed out for security purposes for that kind of wiretap. And another former official said, who didn't want to be identified, said that there was no warrant given out for any criminal investigation. So we're told, and we assume we can believe, no security investigation, no criminal investigation. Does that exhaust all possibilities? Does that, strictly speaking, mean that the president's remark has been disproven?
Well, you know, Trump knows this. You could never disprove his remarks. But, I mean, I think this is fairly silly. All he needs to do is call the Department of Justice. He is in control of the Department of Justice. Was there a FISA warrant against my phones in the Trump Tower? And he would get an answer immediately if there was a Title III permission, authorization to tap his phones. Is the implication that Obama had some sort of plumber's unit in the White House? I don't know. That would surprise me if Obama didn't. Certainly other entities in the government aren't going to put a wiretap on them, DEA or somebody else.
I'm going to jump in. Forgive me, you're using a lot of acronyms, and I just want to bring everyone up to date. FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Security Act, and it would be an operation deemed for security purposes. Title III refers to, I guess it was a 1968 omnibus anti-crime bill that would refer to criminal investigations. But here's my question, Bob Baer. If the president was the subject of an ongoing investigation for either security or criminal purposes, would the Justice Department tell him about it, or would they be obligated to say, Mr. President, you may be involved, and we cannot tell you?
No, absolutely. There's no way that they wouldn't tell the President of the United States. The Department of Justice works for the President. These are a matter of record. This is the sort of thing that he could get into. And certainly at this point, he would have mentioned that there had been a Title III authorization to tap his phones. I mean, this is all very, very strict. The president himself cannot order a tap. The police do, the FBI does, and they have to do it with probable cause. No FBI agent is simply on a whim or at the behest of the president going to tap Trump's phone. It just doesn't work that way. We are getting into very strange, uncharted waters here. The president's making this accusation. And I just find this all very troubling myself.
Josh Rogan, let me ask you about why the president is doing this, because presumably we're even having this conversation because of reporting that his former national security advisor had been involved in some way with the Russians, the investigation into contacts between the campaign and the Russian government. Is the president keeping that story alive much as he maligns it, or is he trying to create a controversy, do you think, to push that first story off the page and create a different one?
Well, it's hard to get inside President Trump's head, but what we can say is that he's clearly very upset by a string of stories that refer to a few different parts of this investigation. So there's the FBI investigation, there's the congressional investigations, and then there are all these reports of meetings between senior Trump campaign and administration officials with Russian officials that they either forgot or denied or had to admit after they came out in news reports. And all of these issues are being conflated. And to the president, it seems like a conspiracy by former and current government officials to undermine his presidency. Now, that whether or not that's true, that's what he definitely is alleging here. And then he took that one step further to point to this sort of wiretap theory. And to him, that would justify and validate his paranoia over this conspiracy. But one, we don't really know if there's a conspiracy. We know there are leaks. We know there are investigations. And two, it's very unlikely, it seems, that there was a wiretap. So the president has taken a sort of paranoid idea and combined it with a conspiracy theory to create a huge controversy that all of us are now obligated to sort of try to untangle, and it's really impossible to do so because so many of the details are either classified or were leaked by anonymous sources. And in that confusion, it's true that the White House gets a benefit, is that no one can really figure out if there's any there. They say there's not. A lot of people say there is. You know, in my heart of hearts, I don't know. You don't know. You know, the FBI doesn't seem to know. And by muddying the waters, whether it's intentional or just out of sheer paranoia, what the president has done is he's made it much harder to get to that ground truth.
Josh Rogan, Bob Baer, thanks very much.
Thank you.